We're gonna make this kind of quick, but we're just gonna do a quick run through of the DFS slate for tonight for UFC Fight Island 3. Should be pretty interesting. There's some weird matchups on it. It's basically like a all decision card, if I'm gonna be honest, which makes it really rough for your fantasy lineup and just picking out like who's really gonna win because the judging has been really rough on Fight Island that we've seen in the past couple fights. I've been wanting to do one of these for a while, and shame on me for not. I've been spiking a lot on the MMA DFS lines since the pandemic's been going on, and I've kind of wanted to like show people my process and everything since a couple people that I know have asked. Um, so I just wanted to get that out there just to help people who kind of want to get into it to watch MMA, that like sports betting MMA and such, um, and that want to get into this and see just the ins and outs and it, like the research that goes into it and kind of what you have to do to make the best decisions to make money. Like I had a 10x ROI week last week. The UFC 251, I had like a 5x week, so I've been doing really good. So I just want to get that out there to, free money, and this time is free money, and if I can do anything to help people do that, then here it is. So we're gonna get this rolling. Daniel Wood, he's 9,500. He's going against John Castaneda. They're both 16-4. Average fight points for Nathaniel Wood are 83.5. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage, or minus 1-inch reach advantage and minus 1-inch height advantage to John Castaneda. It's kind of tough to get to Wood at his price point due to someone that I'll get to a little bit later. Castaneda, I don't even really consider him like punt play, but you kind of have to have like some shares. Like I'll probably have like maybe like one or two lineups with him in it, just as like a security policy in case something crazy happens. But I think Nathaniel Wood should definitely get him by this fight. As far as their win percentages and such broken down, Nathaniel Wood, he's wins by 56% in KO TKO during the time, opposed to Castaneda at 41%. Sub 39% to 29% for Castaneda. Decision, Castaneda is 29%, while Wood has 13%. So Wood really has like an 87% finish rate, which is pretty much where you want to be. They don't have like a whole lot of info based on Castaneda, considering the one time he fought really was on like the Contender Series, I believe. But Wood does have like a 71% takedown accuracy and 80% takedown defense. So that's pretty solid, very sound. It's very high for the slate, in my opinion. Yeah, Nathaniel Wood is where I would look to, but it's really tough to get him his price point. And Castaneda is 1-2 in his last fight, so I don't even necessarily consider him like a punt play. The next fight we got is Amaev and Stolze. Amaev's 18-4. Stolze is 12-3. Stolze is making his debut. There's a few debuts on this card, which also makes it a little rough. You have to do like a lot more research on the side. Stolze averages a 51.1. Amaev averages a 51.1 DraftKings point percentage. He's a favorite, but his price point's like 9,400. And against Stolze. So Stolze has a 75% finish rate. 33% of that is by TKO. 42% is that by sub. Amaev has a 44% decision rate, which is not good. His 56% finish rate only. So he pretty much only gets decisions, which is why his DraftKings point reflection is so low. He is 2 inches shorter than Stolze, and he does have like a 1-inch reach advantage. So Stolze is actually like kind of a live punt play. That's really like I can't see myself like getting towards Amaev for Nathaniel Wood like being $100 more, and he scores just a lot better, and he could probably like I could see Stolze like losing or winning this fight, and Amaev just getting punch, takedown, then I don't see it very favorable. Um, Next we have Piene Kianzad versus Beth Correa. I do like Kianzad a lot more. She is 13-5. This is kind of just like a fade fight, really, but you kind of have some shares a little bit. Beth Correa is 11-14-1. Her average is 49.4, while Kianzad is 37.6. She does have a 2-inch height and reach advantage. She should be able to win by decision. Beth Correa does have like a very tough schedule from her past fights, from fighting like Cyborg and Ronda Rousey, etc. I think Kianzad could get her. Both their decision rates are 82 and 77 respectively. So I don't really want a part of this fight, especially at the price points being so awkward. Next we have Tanner Boser and Rafael Nunez. Tanner Boser is 18-6-1, and then Rafael Pessoa is 10-1. Tanner Boser's average fight score is 67.7, while Pessoa is 31.5. Boser is 3 inches shorter, or 3 inches reach differential in Pessoa's favor, and a 1-inch height differential in his favor. Tanner Boser looked really good in his last fight. He won by KO. Really quick when everyone thought he was going to lose to Felipe Lenz. Rafael Pessoa, like he's not that great in general. I believe he got busted for PEDs a bit back. Don't quote me on that. In a bigger cage, I could totally see Tanner Boser like working his legs, keeping distance, just kind of working the cage, working around what's good for him, avoiding the takedown. So Pessoa does have most of his wins by KO or TKO. Tanner Boser, he has a 50% TKO KO win rate, whereas Pessoa has 60%. Tanner Boser also has 11% sub rate, Pessoa 10, and then decision rate is 39% for Boser, while 30% per Pessoa. Pessoa's average fight time is actually very short. His average fight time is about 4 minutes 15 seconds, so it is in the first round. Usually his fights end by the first round. So he is like a viable dart throw, which I have here. He does not a typical good scorer in general, but Tanner Boser is kind of rough to get to at his price point. It kind of depends on your strategy where you want to get to, because we'll get to Chimaev, who is like 9,800, but I think he's a lock. Like you have to play him, and if you fade him and like one of these decision fights don't go your way, then your whole lineup's just kind of stunk. Like depending on how much you paid for that person and relative. Whereas if I pay like 7K per Pessoa and like maybe he gets a sub on Tanner Boser, like gets a takedown or something, like I don't know. Tanner Boser is a big dude though. So next we have Evila versus Mike Grundy. Evila is 12-0. Mike Grundy is 12-1. Evila scores on an average of 84.3, whereas Grundy has a 104.5. They're both mirrors of each other. Basically, this is going to be a really, really good fight. Evila is a slight favorite, but he's at a very high price point. The community has been going towards Mike Grundy's favor all this week. I do like the value play a lot for 7,100 for that pump play. Both their metrics are mirroring each other fairly well. Evila lands 3.3 strikes a minute, whereas Mike Grundy lands 3.4. 64% for Evila for significant strikes, whereas Mike Grundy's at 58. Strikes absorbed for a minute. Evila is at 1.73, whereas Mike Grundy's 2.27. Takedown or striking defense is at 55%, whereas Mike Grundy's 76%. Mike Grundy is a freestyle wrestling champion, so it's pretty good. So grappling takedown average per fight. Evil is at 5 takedowns per fight, whereas Mike Grundy's like 1.55, so basically like 1.5. Takedown defense, 31% for Evil, whereas 33% for Grundy. Or takedown accuracy, I'm sorry, and they both have 100% takedown defense. They typically don't win by submission, usually by stoppage, ground and pound. I do like the value play for Mike Grundy, whereas Evil is like 9,100. Like I said, it's a little bit rough in this 9K range when you have Chimaev at like 9.8. But I do like the value play a lot for Evil. They might just cancel each other out. Whereas it's basically like Russian combat wrestling versus American freestyle wrestling. So typically in those type of fights, we see it just kind of be a slugfest, land on their feet. Who has better takedown defense? And I think they're both really like about the same stylistically. No one has like a height or reach advantage, so this is going to be very, very interesting. Next on the card, we have Tom Aspinall versus Jay Collier. Jay Collier is coming back. It depends on which version of Jay Collier we see, because typically he is not that good. Tom Aspinall is making his debut in 8,800. He's 7-2, where Jay Collier is 11-4. Jay Collier's average score is 53.9, so basically 54. Jay Collier is 2 inches taller, or 2 inches shorter, and has a half an inch reach advantage. Apparently, Tom Aspinall has been training with Tyson Fury. His price point is a little awkward, but if I can afford to get there, I will get there for 8,800. He's making his debut, but Jay Collier doesn't typically perform well from a DFS perspective, and I think they're kind of just giving this fight because they need someone for Aspinall to fight and kind of debut against. Yeah, I like Aspinall. I don't necessarily even like Jay Collier as a punt play, even so, because you could punt to Grundy or Pessoa, save a couple bucks. Even this next person's in 2 fights, Jai Herbert is kind of in that range too. Going on to the next fight, this should be in Dalby's favor for sure, versus Jesse Ronson. Nicholas Dalby 18-3. His average score is 48.9 though, so once again not very good. Jesse Ronson 20-10. His average score is 27.5, so once again not very good. Dalby is 1 inch taller and has a 2 inch reach advantage. I should probably just reverse these. The next one. I definitely have to split shares to this fight. Dalby is really high for 9,200, but this should be incredibly in his favor. Jesse Ronson is also moving up a weight class, whereas Dalby is moving down. So I like Dalby a lot, but it's really, really hard to get there. I can see him finishing this fight, but barely. Jesse Ronson is kind of tough. Jesse Ronson actually does also finish majority of his fights. He only has a 19% decision rate, whereas Dalby has a 44% decision rate. You could take a punt play on Jesse Ronson, but I don't recommend it considering he's moving up a weight class while someone's moving down a weight class. But his price point, once again, is a little bit harder to get to. I guess if you wanted to go, there's options to go Dalby instead of Nathaniel Wood. If you feel safer doing that. I kind of do. With Dalby, Chimaev, picking a higher 6, low 8 play, which I'll get to, and then a kind of a punt play with Grundy or something like that. Possibly this next guy. So Francisco Trinaldo versus Jai Herbert. So Trinaldo is a bit older. He's 42 years old. Or Jai Herbert is making his UFC debut. So Trinaldo, his win-loss is 25-7. Jai Herbert is 10-1. Trinaldo usually scores 62.3. This is Jai Herbert's debut. Jai Herbert is 4 inches taller. Both at 155 even. Jai Herbert also finishes his fights by TKO or submission. TKO is 80% of the time, and submission's only 10% of the time. So you definitely Jai Herbert's definitely my biggest underdog favorite out of this card. He feels like fine value. I'll probably drop this down to like 20% for Francisco Trinaldo shares and probably like 80% of Jai Herbert. I just feel a lot better about the fight in his favor. Trinaldo's 42 years old in his low 40s. Jai Herbert's making his debut. He's coming from a better camp, I believe, and I think he'll just be able to avoid the takedowns, square him up on the feet. Francisco Trinaldo has like a 48% decision rate. I don't like that in DFS. And up. I don't like that in DFS. And yeah, I'd just rather stay away from 8,500 Trinaldo, and I feel very fine at 7,700 Jai Herbert. Next, Khamzat Chimaev versus Reese McKee. I feel very sorry for Reese McKee. Good luck. If you didn't see Khamzat Chimaev fight like 2 weeks ago, you should probably go watch that fight because this man is insane. Yeah, Reese McKee, good luck. They both took this fight like a week ago. So I think Chimaev, he's at a high price point, but you have to look at this from the perspective of I don't know if any of you play like NFL DFS where like you have to play Christian McCaffrey like every week, like even though he's going to be chalk, like if like no matter what, like if he scores like 35 points and you don't have Christian McCaffrey while like the rest of the field does, and the rest of your team doesn't like do as well, then you're kind of screwed. So I feel like you just you have to play Chimaev, and you just kind of have to work it out in your lineup. Like that's just my firm stance on tonight. Like Reese McKee's not a bum. Like don't get me wrong, he's like 10-2-1, but I think Chimaev's gonna like dust him up. Like I think you have to play him if you want to just be completely contrarian and take a 6,400 shot on Reese McKee, like and dodge Chimaev and take a couple of the other like higher 9K options, like Nathaniel Wood and Nick Dalby, like in the same lineup, as well as maybe Mev or like maybe even Shogun Hua, who I'll get to. Like you kind of do something like that, but I don't know. I don't recommend it. I might have like one lineup of doing that now that I think about it to myself out loud. Like it might be good. It's like a dart throw, but I think Chimaev's just gonna mop the floor with him, and it's gonna be disgusting. Next, we have Alex Oliveira versus Peter Sabata. Cowboy Oliveira, he's 10-8-1 coming into this, with Sabata is 17-6-1. Oliveira typically scores 63.6, whereas Sabata typically scores 53.8. Alex Oliveira does have a 1-inch reach advantage while being 1 inch shorter, so they're basically like the same when you figure it out. This fight kind of feels more like a fade. I could see myself getting to a bit of Sabata. He has like a very, very high sub rate, but Oliveira does have some good BJJ. Their strikes absorbed per minute, or same strike breakdown. So Oliveira, he usually lands about 3, or Sabata 2.17. Significant strike percentage is about 51% for Oliveira, 39% for Sabata. 2.27 for Oliveira absorbed, whereas 2.89 for Sabata absorbed, so a little bit higher. He has a better striking defense. Sabata is at 59%, while Oliveira is at 44%. Grappling takedown average for Oliveira is 2.84, while Sabata's 1.76. Takedown accuracy is 37%, where Sabata is 35%. Defense, 77% for Sabata, 59% for Oliveira. This is like a pretty even fight. I might have like some shares of Sabata just as getting there for price point, but it does feel more like a fade, especially with just how they score. I'm not that big on it. Next, we have Antigulov versus Paul Craig. Antigulov is 20-6, while Paul Craig is 12-4-1. Antigulov typically scores 55.3, whereas Paul Craig 48.6. Paul Craig does have a big advantage in reach and height. He has 5.5 inch reach advantage and a 4 inch height advantage. I think that'll be in a lot. I feel it feels kind of like a coin toss matchup, but I do like Paul Craig a bit more. Um, the like 8K matchup like typically has defined the past couple weeks, so you kind of have to split your shares pretty evenly. But just keep in mind like your the other shares that you don't have might are just going to be garbage and dead. So don't like watch your exposure to this fight and make sure you limit it a bit and don't go overboard. But yeah, I do like Paul Craig. Um, Typically, he has a 92% sub rate, so I like that a lot. Whereas TU Live has like a 75% sub rate and 20% KOs. But I think Paul Craig will just be able to beat him up. He's a lot bigger guy, just for like natural height and what he's gonna weigh in at post weigh and fight weight. Um, Next, we have Marina Rodriguez versus Carlos Esparza. Marina Rodriguez coming in at 12-0-2. Esparza's coming in at 17-6. Rodriguez typically scores 61, while Esparza typically scores 59.1. So pretty even there. Marina Rodriguez does have a 2-inch reach and a 5-inch height advantage, so she's going to be towering over Esparza. This doesn't necessarily feel like a great fight for Esparza at all. Um, I see this going to decision. So Esparza might be worth a look if you want like a dart throw punt play, but it doesn't feel worth it, especially for this price points where you can get like Jai Herbert for like 100 more than Esparza. Um, you can at like 8,600. I mean, you could ride like Antigulov or like Paul Craig over there. You could play like Aspinall instead of Rodriguez for like 200 more. So kind of factor it in. It's pretty much like a fade, but Rodriguez could get the decision, and she could score decently based on getting significant strikes in that. She could also just get the KO towards like the end of a round if she's just beating up Esparza the whole time, or she doesn't like she just can't go anymore. She could get a late TKO. That's like all I can really see. This fight card is like so awkward. This next fight we have is Gustafsson versus Verdum. Gustafsson is 9,300. Fabricio Verdum is 6,900. Gustafsson is 18-6, whereas Verdum is 23-9. Gustafsson usually scores 76, whereas Verdum usually scores 76.6. Gustafsson does have a 2-inch reach advantage and a 1-inch height advantage. I will have some exposure to Verdum or to Gustafsson. I feel like I won't for Verdum. I think like this is a very bad stylistic matchup for him, and I feel like the only way that he has a chance at winning is if he gets a late minute sub, and I feel like Gustafsson should just dominate the fight. Aside from that, like I don't think I'll have very much exposure. But yeah, I think Gustafsson's fine. He's kind of hard to get to, but I think he should get a decision. I think he might even be able to like put him away. But I don't think a lot of people will be on this fight, which is why I kind of want to go with Gustafsson. But I don't know. We'll see exactly how much of my exposure it is. I feel like I might have like maybe like 30% shares Gustafsson. Next, we have Shogun Rua versus Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. Lil Nog. Lil Nog has hinted on this being his last fight. Verdum actually did say this is like period his last fight in the UFC, so that's another reason why I'm just not playing him tonight. Both these guys are old. Both these guys are completely dusted up, beat up. Mauricio Rua got dragged by a truck and run over while he was a kid, so like no doubt he's tough, but like I will have like some shares of Rua, probably fade him. So going for the breakdown, Rua's 9K, Nogueira 7,200. Rua is 26-11-1, whereas Nogueira is 23-9. Rua typically scores 65.4, whereas Nogueira typically scores 51.1. He has a 1-inch reach advantage and a 1-inch height disadvantage versus Nogueira. Like I said, I'll have some shares in fade. I can see a KO based on age on like either end, just because they're so dusted up and their bodies are so breaking down. It can still go to distance and it'd be a bit pricey. If this does go the distance, then I don't like it. Rua is like 4-1 since like 2013, I believe, or 2015. Both of them don't go like don't score too well as far as DraftKings points are concerned. But Hua has been knocking out well, and when he does, he typically scores like over 100. His past couple knockouts have been like 105, 106, and like 110. I'm not looking at anything. That's just like the top of my head from what I saw earlier. So don't necessarily quote me on it, but I know it has been like in that range. If he does get a KO, he will pay off that 9K price tag. But if not, he could totally get KO'd by Hua, who was he was an Olympic caliber Brazilian boxer. It's very hard to say. Back when he fought in Pride, so he does have really good hands. So it's really tough to say who wins this fight. It's basically kind of either like a split share fade like toss up, but I don't know. I'm kind of not interested in it at all. I'm just kind of interested in like drinking a beer and checking it out, really, than having too much stock in it. Main fight of the night, we have Robert Whittaker versus Darren Till. This is possibly the most evenly priced DFS main event that I've seen in like the past 5 events. That's like you're not like either picking like an underdog that's completely low priced or anything like that. So Robert Whittaker comes in at 8,300, Darren Till 7,900. Whittaker is 21-5, whereas Darren Till is 18-2-1. Whittaker typically scores 77, whereas Darren Till typically scores 54.9. Darren Till has a half-inch reach advantage. They're basically the same fighter. It may go the distance. Someone might get knocked out. Robert Whittaker has a strikes per minute advantage. I think this fight also like might be stackable. I think I'll have one lineup where I stack it, just because I think it'll go the distance, and I think they'll both land a good amount of significant strikes. And if I take a loser and he scores like 50, 60 points in that loss, I think that might actually be fine. Whereas some of these fights, you might get a decision win where you only get like 65, 70 points. So like I said, it might be stackable. It's probably not, but I will have one share where I do that. Till's a lot more technically sound. He's openly said in interviews that he thinks his hands are a lot better than Whittaker's. Going for their standard fight metrics. Let's see here. Sorry, I should have had that up right away. Like I said, they're basically the same fighter, but by win rate, Robert Whittaker typically wins TKO or sub 48% of the time and 24% of the time per sub, whereas Darren Till's 59% TKO, 12% per sub. I could see one of them just getting completely like knocked the hell out on either end. So you kind of have to like split your shares a bit on this fight. I do like Robert Whittaker a little more, but he hasn't taken down anyone in a fight in like 3 years. So yeah, this fight's kind of a toss-up. I do like Darren Till. I do have found like Darren Till fits a little more at that 7,900 at my price points than Robert Whittaker. So we'll see. It's super tough. Like they're both like basically the same fighter. So this is probably going to be a good old Saturday night slobber knocker. So yeah, that's all I really got on the card. As far as value plays, like I said, I do like Mike Grundy a lot. Jai Herbert was another good play I liked a lot. It's pretty much it. You can play like I don't trust Stolze, but I'm pretty much all in on my value plays of Mike Grundy and Jai Herbert. That's pretty much all I got. Be careful on the mid-AK matchups. And just watch your exposures this card because it is going to be kind of awkward and hard to deal with. But thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. If you find any of this information useful, please follow, like, subscribe. It all goes a long way. I will be doing a lot of NFL DFS coverage, so be on the lookout for that. I do have NFL mock drafts from positions 1 through 12 up on my YouTube page, No Coast Fantasy Sports. So if you want to check that out, please do. If that's something that interests you, if you're gearing up for the NFL season, and want to check that out, it will have a second round coming up now that we won't have any preseasons going on. So obviously values, ADPs change based on that